Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. In the last week's letter from the chairman, the big news was that CIG's planning for Star Citizen was not looking beyond just 4.0, server meshing and Pyro, and instead what they called the first commercial release, named 1.0. As Richard Trier wrote, with this aim, Chris and I have overseen the creation of a roadmap that takes us all the way up to 1.0 and outlines all the features and content we need, and just as crucially, the ones that will come post full release. And when that roadmap becomes known, the shit will hit the fan, heavier than it has ever hit before. The posts from the complainers and the haters will practically write themselves. It has been so many hundreds of millions of dollars in so many years, and we aren't even going to get just fill in the blank, and then include the item from the stretch goals or the quote from the 10 from the chairman and the Gamescom presentation with Chris promising, so many things.
Okay, so the PvP slider is an input to the game's matchmaking system.
And when all that crap is flying about, what does CIG say? The old excuse that this is just an alpha is gone, and the phrase that it's just a tier 0 implementation will be a lot less credible too. The one thing that they can say that would help the most is the phrase, we listen to our players. But before CIG can say that, something else has to happen. We have to give CIG something to listen to. If you think that it is important to weigh in about master modes or make your mind known about every adjustment to FPS, then the issue of what does and does not make it into 1.0 is far, far more significant. I'm suggesting to everyone, no matter what your form you prefer, to give CIG something to listen to. And that particularly goes for those of you who aren't shy about telling CIG things that they might not want to hear. And along those lines, they did not say so much, but there was kind of an impression that they were feeling that there was so much cool stuff to be coming across from Squadron 42 being ready that it should be enough to make Star Citizen ready too. But that would only get you the status of Star Citizen being the best single-player MMO ever. And that is not a compliment. No, it is about as far from a compliment as you can get. And right now, Star Citizen often resembles that, the best single-player MMO, with huge Carracks, Reclaimers, and 890s being flown solo, because it's often just so much time and effort to get together a crew. So this video, yes there will be more, is on the theme of filling a ship with crew. So the first thing that needs to go into 1.0 list is the Matchmaking Tool, which is essentially a way of give you control over which shard you are on. Currently there's only the most minimal of matchmaking. The system tries to return you to the last shard you were on, period. And this is often what you do desire, which is important because there are things you change outside of your personal inventories, the proverbial coffee cup in the woods, that only exist on that shard. I dub this the Vegas shard rule, as in what happens in the Vegas shard stays in the Vegas shard. But the problem with the current system is that if for one game session you get bumped to the Phoenix shard, then there is little practical way that you can get back to your Vegas shard. So the matchmaking system must let you, if you need to follow a bounty or join a friend on a mission or event or whatever, move to that specific shard while being able to keep your most familiar shard as your default. In addition, another phenomenon needs to be addressed. Player counts hit spikes and valleys, just from events, holidays, weekends. If you spawn enough shards for the peaks, they will be sparsely populated at the valleys. This is what I call the Seattle shard rule, from a famous billboard that said, "Will the last person leave Seattle turn off the lights?" So the idea is, if your typical shard is full, you can wait in a queue, or you can opt to join an overflow shard, which differs only in that you need to avoid leaving anything you care about lining about, and store it instead in an inventory, because the next time you log in, if your typical shard is not overcrowded, you will not be offered the overflow shard, and when the last person leaves the overflow shard, the lights are indeed turned off. But this opens up all sorts of other opportunities. For example, if you want to make the Daymar rally go off with minimal interference, make a Seattle shard for it, limited to the people who are part of the event. So you don't have to leave it hanging out there like a tempting piece of bait and then get upset when somebody actually takes that bait and you wind up having to give out bans. Conversely, if a group of PvP orgs want to sponsor a Murder Mania Battle Royale with no crime stats, go ahead. The point is that 1.0 may have larger shards, but it's not going to have infinitely large shards. So managing your shards, both at the individual and at CIG's level, must be included with 1.0. But just managing your shard isn't enough. There is managing getting on and off the ship itself. There's already been some words from CIG that they are looking at a bed logout mechanics for 1.0 because the current level of bed logout is really hard to get a group of players together and keep them together. So let me add some of my own details of such a system. First, it should be possible for the owner to detach their ship from themselves and attach it to their party or their org. I'll return to this in a later video when I talk about org features. The ship then is attached to a pseudo character that is the org or the party, which will persist until the ship either is claimed or stored at a station. So the owner does not have to be the last to leave. Then there's what I call embarking and disembarking instructions on Logout, which can apply both to ships and stations. So I can bed logout on a ship and specify that I want to disembark at a specific location or disembark at the first station or city that I'm not prohibited from. So I can log out and not have to worry about what would happen if I log back in and the ship is no longer there. If the ship gets destroyed before the disembarkation happens, then regeneration applies but not DOAS. This way, I can join a multi-crew adventure without worrying too much about whether I can stay till the end. Similarly, I can log out at a station or landing zone with the instructions to board a particular ship and own it if it arrives. I would then return to the game in the bunk of the ship. This would greatly simplify the gathering of crew aboard a ship before the start of a planned game session. But that will rarely work out perfectly, so there has to be a way of filling the ship with non-players. Over the course of the project, there have been 3 types of non-player crew discussed. There was AI blades to operate things like turrets, there was hired crew entirely under AI, and then there were alt-account NPCs. This was described from very early on as you could have 2 game packages, one with your Han Solo character and the other with your Chewbacca character. Both can be on your ship, and sometimes you will play the Han Solo character, at which time Chewbacca will be under AI, and other times you might play the Chewbacca character, and during which Han Solo character would be under the AI. Now, I will go further and say that it should be possible to do the switch without having to log out and back in. Why? Because if there is an emergency and the ship is about to crash and the Chewie AI has derped out and is T-posing on a chair, you don't have time to exit and return. Now, as to the sequencing of all this, I'm very likely going to surprise you and go exactly the opposite of what I think you were expecting. That the character account NPC should be in 1.0, followed by hired NPCs, and then the AI blades in 1.x releases. Why? Because the AI blades increase rather than decrease the feeling of being alone in a lifeless ship. And the character slot NPC is preferable because you can jump in and fix problems, and so it doesn't have to be completely perfect. Moreover, the character slot NPC enables guest play, which has gone by several names over the years and really is quite simple to accomplish if you think about it right. For example, if I had a friend I really liked, I could give him the name and password of my Chewbacca account, and boom, they're playing with me. Well, guest play is just doing the same thing, but without needing quite so much trust. The character slot AI crew and the ability to guest play them will be the single most likely thing to keep our ships active with players and to make this not feel like the best single-player MMO ever. They will also be a great revenue source as multi-crew ship owners will be snapping up extra game packages for their crew. And I also think players will identify more with crew if they, even if rarely, actually play them. On my next video in this series, I'm going to talk about the career backlog in Star Citizen. and which of the still missing careers should be put in the 1.0 column. Now for an update on our giveaways. We continue to make progress towards our goal of giving away the Zippy Zazzy Zaftig Zephyr, the Zeus 2 Cargo, as well as our larger goal, the magnificent multi-role mining meta, the Arasta. 1 entry per video. Be a member to automatic entry on any video published while your membership is active, or comment, including the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the city name for the shard where they turn out the lights. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.
Tide of travel